Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Good morning, everyone. Well, it may not be morning for you, but it is for me. Yesterday, I started a video on Kumarajiva, and I will continue with that book. But today, I wanted to talk about something. Now, you know, there's 1,000 videos on this channel, and so repetition is not avoidable. Already problems with my mouth. Anyway, there's a subject that I've talked about in chunks here and there, and I have some videos dedicated to it. But because I recently posted a new book, an ebook on threefoldlotus.com, and a print book, and I was doing some research on Kumarajiva, and I came across some information that relates to this, and I thought, you know, it must mean that because I'm running into this information that I need to talk about this again. But this will be a little different perspective. I want to make a logical and meaningful argument for you to understand. Now, many of you who've been watching me for a while, you know this. And how you feel about it, well, that's up to you. But many people who come to this Sangha do so because they've been sick and tired of propaganda or just couldn't handle the organizational politics or some things just didn't ring true. Whatever your reasons, you've gotten somehow tired or fed up or disenchanted or disenfranchised from these huge groups promoting to teach Nichiren's doctrine of Buddhism, from Nichiren Shoshu and other sects to lay organizations. I'm not going to name them all. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is that we practice Buddhism correctly, as Shakyamuni taught it, as Tendai understood it, as Nichiren, our contemporary master, our bodhisattva, understood and taught the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, of Shakyamuni's teachings of the Dharma, how to attain our own enlightenment. That's what matters, right? So I put this book out, and I isolated a certain group. You know, you can go to the playlist and you can see there's a playlist for Nichiren's Gosho that's some 350 videos. There's another Gosho, Nichiren Gosho 2, TOO, how clever, that reviews a lot of Goshos that are either the same or others that weren't included in the Zenshu from the Nichiren Shu group source. And I got sick of going through those because they're so westernized and they have so much freaking Christianity in them. It drove me crazy. So I didn't do them all, but I did quite a number of them. There's 100 videos there. There's a lot of videos on this channel going over every word of Nichiren's writings. Though they're translated, I tried to clean up the translated as much as possible so that they read true to Buddhism and to Nichiren. But, you know, there's always going to be stuff that slips through the cracks. But, you know, if you're like me, looking at that volume of Gosho and saying, okay, how am I going to go about reading this, right? I remember my teachers saying, you know, just go down the list of titles and pick one that catches your curiosity. But that's not a good way, because how do you know what the heck is in the letter to Jijobo? Why would that grab my attention? So it's more helpful to have like subject matter, questions to go look, right? So I started doing something. We just finished a book on the 3,000 realms. It's a short book, but it has some essential Nichiren Gosho, words of Nichiren's, teachings of Nichiren's doctrine specifically related to the 3,000 realms. To me, that's a little bit more relatable. That's the subject I want to dive into. So here's a few Gosho that dive into that. Cool. That makes sense to me. So in that regard, and this is a much larger book, but I had to pick certain Gosho, certain writings where Nichiren specifically talks about mandala and when he talks about Gohonzon. But, sometimes the translations are pretty clear on that, but many times, because they are translations from these groups, organizations, influences, because they want to push a certain agenda, it's muddy. And so I wanted to talk about this word, and I posted this on the threefoldlotus.com site on the study materials page. There's a new link there called the Object in Buddhism. Okay, I have it here so I can read from it. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that today. But before I dive in, thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your practice, your curiosity, your desire to practice correctly, right? That's this resource, the website, the bookstore, the mandala store, all about solidifying your confidence, your resolve, and your practice. When you chant, you need to know that you're not just playing at Buddhism, that you're actually enlivening your Buddha-ness, yes? Sometimes it's hard to have confidence in that. And we need resources like this to remind us, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's how this is working. We see evidence in our lives, but sometimes it's not as easy to see. So in that regard, because we use our vision a whole lot in samsara to guide us, the word object in Buddhism has its foundations in the goals, the aim, the idea, the concept that Shakyamuni found that exists in our minds, not as an organ, not as a thing, but an ability, a function of the mind that isn't controlled by the physical. Think about that for a moment, right? You'll talk to neurologists and scientists who talk about the brain, and they'll talk about chemicals and electromagnetic force and quantum even look at Christopher Penrose and I always forget the biologist doctor that he works with on tubules in the brain. They're talking about quantum activity in the brain, yeah? But Buddhism isn't talking about that. It's talking about the mind. Now, the way the mind emerges from this physical apparatus, which includes everything, may very well have to do with the complexities of the brain. Not saying it doesn't. But the mind itself, the experience of thought, is not a physical organ. It may manifest from the complexity of the brain, but it is not the brain. We all agree on that. So I was looking at descriptions for object in Buddhism. As you know, it should be a verb. Object isn't the right word. But what it's trying to encapsulate, and I think this is the one word that's supplied some sort of a slippery slope for the agendas of those who would have you think, and this is the key moment that you know something's wrong. This mandala that you sort of see behind me, the mandala of Nichiren, and the one behind me is, and the one that I distribute on the Cafe Press site that you and on threefoldlotus.com you can download it, the digital file, and print it out for yourself. I make it so easy to get it because that's what Shakyamuni's goal was, and every bodhisattva after that, including Nichiren. Gohonzon is something you already have, you already own in your mind. The mandala is not it. Gohonzon is what we're actuating, yes? Please understand that. But when somebody, I don't care who it is, whether it's some high priest or Bob, and he says, here's a mandala, it's the Gohonzon. Like suddenly he owns your Buddhahood in his hand. And he says, if you want it, you got to do these things. And then maybe you'll qualify for one. Does that make sense to you? That Shakyamuni spent his entire life and 3,000 years of scholarship, and Nagarjuna and Tendai and Miao Lo and Dengyo and Nichiren, all telling you never look for this Gohonzon outside your flesh and body because it's a quality, it's an aspect of your life, of all phenomena, not just you, of everything. You already have this. You just need to learn how to use it, awaken it, just like anything else we learn in life. It's already here. We don't invent anything. We discover things. That's because we're just ignorant until we come across it, and then we learn how to use it. That's samsara. That Gohonzon is already a part of what you are, who you are, so on. So anyone who proposes to you that you're not qualified to have one, you need to run from that idiot. That is a manipulator. That is somebody who wants to control you, own you, derive something from you. You don't need that. We're all working to enlighten ourselves. Okay. So that sounds like I'm setting up sides, right? If you don't know anything about this. So I want to talk through this document today because I want to dive into this book. That's the next series of videos we're going to do. Nichiren and his discussions on the mandala and Gohonzon. I think this is a key thing today in our lives that we really, really need to nail down. What is it that we're doing? What is the value of that mandala? You remember I told an anecdote many videos ago about being at an NSA meeting, Nichiren Shoshu of America. And the leader, quote unquote, in that meeting, 30-some people in the room, still can't believe it to this day, looked with a straight face to everyone in the room and said, this scroll here in this box that we call a Butsudan, this is what we worship. I almost came unglued. I could not believe what I was witnessing. This leader telling all of these initiates and some other members of our group that we worship a piece of paper with characters on it. I couldn't speak. And if you've watched me for any length of time, you know, really, Sifu, Sylvain, you couldn't speak? I'm telling you, I was beside me. I didn't know what to say. I took him aside after the meeting. I still kick myself. I should have said something right then in the meeting because a bunch of people were polluted, as he was. No, friends. First of all, as Buddhists, we don't worship anything. We revere Buddhahood, innate in ourselves and in everything around us. That elevates our experience of life. But we don't worship anything. That is the province of religion. Worshipping is putting or putting the power of anything, whatever it is, whatever you believe, outside of yourself. Did you not just hear me quote Nietzsche? Never seek this Gohanzen outside of yourself. And here this leader is saying, we worship this. How the hell did that sneak into Buddhism? I'll tell you how. We live in a super materialistic society today. Everything is about ownership and having. And again, if you've listened to this channel for any length of time, you know that Buddhism is not a materialistic philosophy. It's an experiential philosophy. How do we live life? Not by owning stuff. How do we be? How do we perceive life, yeah? So here we are. From Hinayana, the earliest teachings, through Theravada, and there's Theravada, there's Abhidharma, there's a Sarvastika school. It just goes on and on. Bhikkhu Bodhi, Tibetan. I mean, I won't read this whole thing. You can download it on the website. Like I said, there's a new link for it now. Oh, this page-turning karma of mine drives me nuts. Abhidharma, Hinayana, Mahayana. All right, so just as a quick example, to indicate to you this isn't new. Mental factors. This is the first thing Shakyamuni discusses. And there are lists. You know, Buddhism loves lists, right? So in the Sarvastivada tradition, early Hinayana, 10 factors arising within every mind, the Hama Bhumika, Vedana, feeling, Samjna, perception, Setana, volition, Sparsa, contact, Chanda, desire to act, Prajna, we've talked about, wisdom, Smriti, mindfulness, Manasikara, attention, Adimoska, moksha, decision, and Samadhi, mental concentration. It is also called ekagata, or one-pointedness. That's just 10 factors arising in every mind. Do you notice? I'll read some more. Here's another one. 10 factors arising with every good mind. So now there's an intention. Remember, I always tell you, Buddhism is about the mind, attitude, and intent. From the very get-go, what is a good mind? It's the intent, right? Conviction, energy, shame at doing evil, decorum, regard for consequence, non-attachment, non-aggression, calmness, equanimity, conscientiousness, non-injurious. 6 factors in a defiled mind, a mind that isn't paying attention to the value of life, but driven by avarice, greed, stupidity, right? Delusion, heedlessness, carelessness, unconcern, laziness, slothfulness, lack of a conviction, lack of trust, lethargy, gloominess, excitement, ebullience. Here's 2 factors. Another 10 factors of limited experiences has selfishness, hypocrisy, envy, vengefulness, craftiness, right? World of anger, really. 4 intermediate factors, regret, sleepiness, initial thought, sustained thought. The Abhidharma, the Theravada, they have 7 universal mental factors, contact, feeling, perception, volition. Are you seeing a pattern here? 6 occasional mental factors, examining, decision, energy, rapture. 14 unwholesome mental factors, delusion, lack of shame, disregard for consequence, hatred, envy, on and on, miserliness, torpor, Bhikkhu Bodhi states, blah, 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 blah. 25 beautiful mental factors. I mean, numbers and numbers of, but the pattern, none of these are about presentation, physicality, owning a statue, having an appropriate document, right? None of these mental factors are about attitude, every single one of them. With or without intent, the two go hand in hand, don't they? Right livelihood, straightfulness, proficiency of mental body, wieldiness of consciousnesses, regard for consequence, lack of greed, lack of hatred, balance, neutrality of mind. Of mind. Constantly, throughout the history of Buddhism, everything is focused on what the mind is at, what it's doing at any given moment. And where is that happening? Not in a scroll, not in a piece of paper. Here's what I wrote, and I'll end with this. And again, this document available online. Hopefully, I don't have too many typos in it. From Tendai to Nichiren, the definition of the object in Buddhism or in Buddhist practice takes the form of the ultimate realization in the potential of the sentient mind. This is the key thing to understand. And if I come up with a better word, then I'll go through all the books that I've published and I'll change it. Wherever the word object appears, will appear this new word. Because object, to you and I in our modern world, means a thing. It means this, that, the other, this, not that. It's the opposite of Buddhism. But there's a nuance to the word object, which modern folks wouldn't know, because we don't study the English language anymore in the schools. We study vernaculars and popular language, and that's what everybody learns anyway, regardless of what's in school. But there's a subtlety to the word object as something aimed for, something, a goal of achievement, a heading, something to work toward. That's the object of my concentration, not a thing. It's a mental conception. But that gets lost in the translation. And these people that would manipulate you to say you don't qualify for one, they're working that delusion hard. And I have a real problem with those people, just as Nichiren had a problem with those people. Like the Nembutsu, like the True Word people, the Zen people. All of the schools that Nichiren railed against was for this particular specific reason. They held the authority to determine your enlightenment. Abhorrent. Absolutely not what Shakyamuni was teaching. And we do it. We speak Buddha's words in Gangyo every day. Day and night. My deepest concern and focus is on how I can get others to achieve this enlightenment. Right? It's in our Gangyo. So why would he put any kind of obstacle in front of that? First of all, everyone has Buddhahood. It's inherent. Gohanzon is a word that, let me read my own words, okay? Like you're keeping me from it. Since the objective of Shakyamuni's lifetime of teachings was the universal truth attainable by any sentient mind to awaken, the central mission of enlightenment was the objective, or the goal or aim of all Buddhist practice. To identify this object as a distinctly unique understanding of Shakyamuni's teachings of the Lotus Sutra, later Mahayana teachings focus solely on the self-realization of innate enlightened mind. right? Earlier Buddhism was about developing just the awareness that we have an influence and an interaction with the mind, this other emergent entity or facility of our physical apparatus, yeah? But Mahayana dives deeply into that. But from the get-go, like I said in this document, from the very get-go, it's about the mind, yes, mental states, citas, right? This focused understanding of the aim of Buddhist practice is named by Nichiren as the sole and unique endeavor of the culminating teachings of the one vehicle, the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Using the prefix of go, Nichiren uses the language of honor, respect, and dedication toward the ultimate aim of practice. This is go. When we say namu, we are in essence saying go. Which Nichiren personifies as the Hanzan, that goal, that mental awareness, that Buddha-ness. That is our object, our goal, our aim, Hanzan, the most vaulted, most respectful Hanzan, the go Hanzan. Now, Japanese has many words for indicating the import of things, like the dai moku. It is the highest form of the tool, the method that Shakyamuni gave us to instantiate this Buddhahood, this Hanzan. Hanzan in Japanese has several nuances of meaning, from master and master of the house to image of dedication. Image, not the thing image, the mental image. Right? This is what I'm constantly telling you guys about chanting, opening your Butsudan, staring at this mandala, and invoking Hanzan, invoking our Buddhahood. Now, hold on. Well, what are you saying, Sylvain? Is this mandala just some piece of paper? Hold on. Reading this way is to understand the corpus of teachings and language around the concepts of the mind, thoughts, and the processes of the mind's attitudes, intentions, and directives. It's what Buddhism is all about. The ultimate master, therefore, the use and discussions regarding the Go Hanzan is to dedicate one's efforts in practice to the ultimate master of reality, Buddha-ness. This is distinctly different from the mandala of Nichiren's samsaric mirror, which is this how Nichiren talks about this mandala all the time, for the sentient mind's awakening, the Gohanzan awakening of the Buddha mind, the profound essence of the mind's ability to witness the true nature of all phenomena, the master of the house. This witnessing, this sentient awakening, is itself the Gohanzan. This is the objective, or the aim, the determined focus of Buddhist practice. On the other hand, the great mandala, as Nichiren called it, and he's quoting Shakyamuni, the great mandala is named such due to its sole purpose of mirroring and facilitating the highest goal of the Buddhist practice. Nichiren's mandala is a truly magnificent tool for our focused practice, but it is not the Gohanzan. As we have seen in the history provided in this document alone, the consistent understanding and dissections of Buddhism lie within the functions of the mind, the citas, the convictions, energy, shame of doing evil, decorum, regard for consequence, non-attachment, non-aggression, calmness, and so on. Completely separate from the physical realities and vicissitudes of samsara and its contents. Knowing this, it is not only completely reasonable to understand that the mandala is not the aim of Buddhist practice, but rather it represents the synthesis of Nichiren's insight of the Lotus teachings. The mandala embodies Nichiren's profound insight of Shakyamuni's elucidated method for self-realization of the 3,000 realms of each thought moment in life, the Gohanzon mind of Buddha-ness. Again, this document is available online. Please download a copy for yourself if you need to, for study or to share with others. threefoldlotus.com/home/home.htm, or just go to threefoldlotus.com and there'll be a button there underneath the book and the ebooks link that says core study materials. Just go to that page and you'll see there's dozens of buttons, green buttons there with titles on them. And there's one in the middle right now. It might move over if I had another button, but it says object in Buddhism. To me, this is so important to understand, not only because it's important to understand, but because we've been so misled and so misprogrammed by these authoritarian organizations to think that somehow we don't qualify unless we belong and we go to so many meetings or we learn how to blah, 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 blah. That's all controlling, authoritarian bullshit. That's what that is. And if they're willing to do that with your Buddhism, your Buddha-ness, what else are they guilty of? This is an individual practice, my friends. And together, as a Sangha, we all individually practice. And my mission, certainly, in this channel, on the website, everything that I do, is to support your practice, your enlightenment for yourself, right? I can't give you Buddha-ness. Only you can do that. So here are the tools. Nichiren created a magnificent tool for our samsaric need to mirror, right? What are we if we don't have an environment with which to see ourselves in? That's the mirror analogy Nichiren constantly uses, right? He uses this mirroring of stuff, our attachments, our desires, as the very tool to send us to our Buddha-ness. And he says, here, if you don't know how to focus your mind to awaken that Buddha-ness, that Gohanzon opportunity of Buddha-ness, here's the Lotus Sutra in characters, in all of its conceptual knowledge, all of its expedient means of teachings and understanding, captured in one local object of focus. This great mandala is great, not because it's the coolest mandala, but because it's not a picture for you to get attached to. It's not words for you to get attached to. It's not, in other words, a samsaric device that has any power in and of itself. The use of this mandala is to mirror your power, your perceptive ability to penetrate your mind of Buddha-ness. And that penetration, that act of getting awakened, is what Nichiren is calling the Gohanzon. This is what you should be striving toward. Not the mandala. The mandala is a tool to help you focus, narrow, and get into that Gohanzon mind and experience Buddha-ness, which is universal without time. Does this make sense? I hope so. As I begin reading the Gosho in this book, and that'll be the next video. There's a forward in this, so you'll hear more blah, blah, blah from me. But I want to make sure that your mind is prepared to get through the labyrinth of words that Nichiren uses to define and to explain the merits, the profundity of the one vehicle teaching of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra. The title of the first one here is On Offering Meditations to the Mandala of the Wonderful and Difficult to Understand Law, which right off the bat, we could talk about that for a whole video. But I will save that for the next video. In the meantime, I hope not only this video is useful, but I also feel like whether you download the PDF to be able to look at it on electronically, digitally, on your devices, or you print it out so that you have it in your library, I want it to be a sort of a meditation for you, what the true nature is of your Buddhist practice, and the incredible opportunity we have with these samsaric tools, the Butsudan, which represents our respect and our security for this practice, right? Synthesized into a mandala to constantly, with one voice, Namo Myo Renge Kyo, instantiate that true reality that is only experienced in the mind. So yeah, that's the benefit, the respect, the qualifications of an altar. But that's it. That altar has no power it's going to bestow upon you. You bestow the power on it. And ultimately, however much respect you have for your enlightenment, embodied as a teaching in the mandala, is all in service of awakening your mind. That's where Gohonzon is. And you already have it. Not my words, Shakyamuni's, Tendai's, Nichiren's, Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu. Every scholar in some way says this same thing. This awakened state of Buddha-ness. The Buddha-ness is already there, has been before human beings walked the planet. Gohonzon is your individual mind opening to that reality. That's where Gohonzon is. All right. I don't know if I'm talked out on this subject or not, but it is a huge misunderstanding, misappropriated concept in the world today. And so I felt I needed to dedicate some time to it specifically. I don't know what I'm going to call this series, but it begins here. And I hope you'll join me for the rest of the videos as I explore this book, which again, you can download as an ebook off threefoldlotus.com or buy a print copy. It's, how many pages is this? Probably about 280 pages. So, not a huge book, but not a small one either. A lot of Nichiren's writings. And if that's your subject, your idea, your curiosity, as it very well may be, because a lot of us early on were programmed by unscrupulous actors who mixed up this idea of mandala and Gohonzon. It may be something that you want. Well, yeah, I'd like to know specifically what Nichiren says about it. So that's what this series is going to be about. And that's why this book, although it's the same Goshos I've read before, all these Goshos are somehow describing analyzing and putting forth exploratories for your consideration on what the mandala is, why it's important, and why the Gohonzon is our aim to accomplish, to awaken, to experience Buddha-ness. Okay? See you in the next one. I've talked too long. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's so important to grow our Sangha. Get out and support this entire resource of Buddhist practice, Buddhist self-education with the bookstore, the mandala store, the podcasts. And now there are podcasts on YouTube. I just can't keep track of it all. Anything I can use, especially if it's free, to promote these teachings, I'm going to do. And in that regard, your support, subscribing, liking, and if you can, Patreon, PayPal, that's about amazing gratitude from all of us, not just me, for the support of this resource. Yeah? Thank you for your practice. Take care of your health. And I'll see you in the next one. All right?